Hello again, it's Pastor Mark at Brantford Church of the Nazarene in Brantford, Ontario. Thanks again for joining me for Take a Break with Pastor Mark, where I am taking time each week to step out of my regular schedule and to answer questions or comments that you have about the Christian faith or about the Bible. This week's question came to me from someone who said they've been reading in the Bible about this thing called the Tribulation, a time of trial, a time of persecution, a time of famines and disaster in the world that's going to happen just before Jesus comes again. And the question was, are Christians going to have to go through the tribulation? Well, I need to acknowledge that this is probably the easiest question that I've had to answer. Now, I say that tongue-in-cheek because the reality is the question itself isn't easy, but my response to it is easy. My response is, I don't know. I don't know if Christians are going to have to go through the tribulation at all. You see, there's a general agreement. There's going to be a time just before the second coming of Christ, just before the judgment, where there'll be this period of tribulation. But where there's not general agreement is whether Christians are going to have to go through it. There's three basic positions. One is a pre-tribulation position, or pre-trib as they call it. That means Christians will be raptured with Christ before the time of the tribulation. The second is the tribulation is divided into two. There's a tribulation, and then halfway through it starts into what they call the Great Tribulation, and that Christians will be taken in the middle of that, after the first half of it. So it's a mid-tribulation or a mid-trib position. The other position is what they call a post-tribulation. It means that Christians who are alive at the time of the tribulation starting are going to go through the tribulation. So there's quite a bit of debate, and quite frankly, I have to say to you, I don't know. The group of churches that we are a part of, the Church of the Nazarene, doesn't take a position on this. We don't take a position on it for three basic reasons. First of all, it's seen by our leadership throughout the years that it's always been a somewhat gray area. It's not black and white. It's not cut and dry. There's a lot of debate about it. Second of all, they look at it and say, this can end up being a divisive point. When we start discussing it, people start dividing over it. And it's not, as third as we see it, essential to salvation. We can hold to a pre-tribulation, a mid-tribulation, or a post-tribulation position and not be at risk with our salvation. It's not a salvation issue. Our salvation issue is what is the work that Christ has done. So that's kind of what our leadership has stood by. But I'm going to go out on a limb today, and I'm going to tell you what my opinion is. Now, understand this, it's my opinion. I'm not saying this that I can absolutely prove it from the Bible 100% or anything like that. I'm going to tell you what my position is. I would like to be a pre-tribulation person. Who naturally wouldn't? We're not going to have to go through the tribulation. But I just can't hold to that as I read through the Bible. I also, at best, I could force myself, but I can't even do that, to be a mid-tribulation person, meaning there's going to be a period of tribulation, then the greater increase of that tribulation is going to occur, and then we will be raptured out of here before that happens. I can't even hold to that mid-tribulation position. But I hold to the position that says there's a post-tribulation, that we're going to have to, if we're alive at the time of the start of the tribulation, we're going to go through the period of the tribulation. Now, I say, I won't argue that, one, partly because I can't prove it 100% from the Bible. There's people who hold a pre-tribulation position, people who hold a mid-tribulation position, and people who hold a post-tribulation position who say they can argue it from the Bible and prove it from the Bible. All three of those positions they say can be proved. Depends who you're talking to. And I'm not going to say that. Well, my sense and my feeling is that it is post-tribulation, but I'm not going to say to you, I can prove that to you from the Bible. But here's why I won't debate that, and I won't argue that to the nth degree. It's because I feel there's a more important question to be asked than this. Instead of, are we going to go through the tribulation, the question should be, are we ready to see Jesus today? Are we ready to see Jesus today? I ask that question knowing that as we've looked in our own recent past, as we've gone through this pandemic and we're going through this pandemic, who would have thought? We've been in it now a year and a half going on 2 years. That's not 1.5 weeks or 1.5 months, but 1.5 years going on 2 years, and soon probably to be approaching the third year as we go through this. It has showed us that there's no certainty to life without it being turned up on end. And are we ready to see Jesus? Now we could ask ourselves, who of us knows what holds for us next week? There could be a tragic accident. There could be a serious diagnosis that we have. And then the question comes into, are we ready for Jesus now? Let's forget about a time of tribulation. Let's forget about a time in the future of thinking all the time, oh, is Jesus coming in? Is Jesus coming in? What about right now? Am I ready to meet him now if he was to come? We believe in the imminent return of Jesus Christ. It means that Jesus could come at any time. And with that, we need to be ready for him at any time. And if you would like to know more about that, I would encourage you to contact me. You can either do it through a Facebook message or through my email address at brantnaz, that's brantnazmark, all one word, at gmail.com, and contact me. And I'd love to talk to you in the future about that, of any questions you have about how can you be ready to meet Jesus now. Well, thanks again for joining me. And if you see behind me, we're at the Flora Clock in beautiful Niagara Falls, Ontario, on the Niagara Parkway between Niagara Falls and Niagara-on-the-Lake. And who knows where we're coming through next week. But you join me then, and we'll answer another one of your questions and your queries with that. So thanks for joining us. Lord bless you, and the Lord keep you.